Hello, students, and welcome to BA 131, Module 4. Here is the sequence, and as recommended, I want you to follow this order right here, this sequence. We have the introduction, the class lecture, which we're recording now. There's some readings, an exercise, homework, and discussion, and a summary right there. Let's go to the PowerPoint. Here is the sequence of what we're covering in Module 4. And we're going to look at the glossary module that is above Module 1 in the BA 131 resources. We'll take a look at that once we get back to the module. And specifically, we're looking at this glossary right here for special education, the Spanish Glossary Project, where you are going to find terms such as IEP team, equipo del IEP. You can pronounce it that way if people are familiar with that. Some people translate the acronym itself, which would be PEI, Programa Educativo Individualizado. So what is an impartial hearing? Una audiencia imparcial. Inclusion or inclusive education. Inclusión o educación inclusiva. Independent evaluation. Una evaluación independiente. Individualized Education Program, IEP, Programa de Educación Individualizado. As I mentioned this in a prior assignment, you put IEP, comma, por sus siglas en inglés. So that way, when you reference it the first time, then you can go back and use IEP and it refers back to Programa Educativo Individualizado. Now, IEP is used for both the program and the plan. After the team gets together, that is the program to help students that need that additional help. A plan is developed, and that is also called an IEP, Individualized Education Plan. It just so happens that it translates beautifully into Spanish because you have Plan Educativo Individualizado. So IEP, PEI, works for both the program and the plan. And you can take a look at these other terms as well and check out more when you get to the glossary. If you're going to be working at a school as a translator-interpreter, more than likely you're going to be working with IEPs, so it's important to get to know these terms and know the translation for those. An IEP is to help students who are struggling in school. They may qualify for support services, such as allowing them to be taught in a special way for reasons such as learning disabilities, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, emotional disorders, cognitive challenges, autism, hearing impairment, visual impairment, speech or language impairment, developmental delay, physical disabilities, etc. And you can find these and more information at kidshealth.org. Now, when you get to the IEP meeting, it's important to know who is going to be there. Now, these are some of the people who can be there. I've had IEPs with as few as 3 people, but the idea of this is to have the team get together to provide the best service for the students, the best education for the students. So it's not uncommon to have a school psychologist, perhaps a physical therapist if the student needs those supports, occupational therapist, speech therapist, special educator, the special education teacher, vision or hearing specialist, and others depending on the child's needs. Again, you may not have all of these people at all the meetings because the student may not need those specific services, but these are some of the people who might be there. It is essential, it's not required, but it is very, very well recommended to have the parent present because they're going to be providing information that the school team may not know, such as what happens after school, what happens at home, how is the student behaving under certain conditions and situations. The student might be there. It's not very common in my experience that the student is there, but they may be there to contribute as well, especially if they can advocate for their own needs. Siblings might be there if they are older siblings that might contribute information that the team or the parents may not know about the student. And of course, in our case, the most important person, just kidding, the student and the parents are most important. But do know that the interpreter, when the parent needs it, is an essential part of the team. So how does this happen? There's a referral process that leads to an evaluation. The first step is that somebody notices something is amiss. A teacher, parent, or perhaps the doctor is concerned that a child may be having trouble in the classroom. The school psychologist or counselor is notified and observes, evaluates the student in the classroom. Then the school psychologist, teacher, and multidisciplinary team gather to create an IEP, a plan, right? Individualized education plan for the student if the student needs special services. And then in that meeting, specific strategies are created to assist student to allow them to be the most successful in school. There is a form that is filled out. This is a blurry sample, but this is information that is contained in there. You have the student, date of birth, student ID, meeting date, who is at the meeting, and all these things. You don't need to be able to see this. This is just a sample, but know that there are forms specific for each school district. After that, they create the individualized education plan with goals and objectives. And if you are both an interpreter and a translator in a smaller district, you might be the one who interprets at the meeting and then translates the plan for the parents if they request it. Now, these are some reminders. We talked about these before. We don't need to go over these again, but these are tips for education translations and interpreting. Class exercise 4, we're going to look at that in the module, the homework 4 as well. And again, if you have any questions, send me an email or an inbox message. Let's go back to the module. So back at the module here, this is module 4. Let's go up above module 1. Here in resources for BA 131, glossaries. You have other glossaries as well, but we're going to look at educational glossaries here. And this is the OSEP Spanish Glossary project that you want to explore, which I opened it right here. And this is in a PDF. You can download it for your own use. And look at these. You can glance it over. It's not that long. It's very well spaced as far as the terms are concerned. So you can go through here. Now notice that this is, of course you can't read it, I'm scrolling past. But notice that this is from English to Spanish. But what if you have a term in Spanish that you want to translate into English? This is an alphabetical order in English. Some of you might spark that idea right now, but if you haven't thought about it, this is a PDF document. It's a searchable document. So click on Control F for find, or the find function in your system, and then type that Spanish term, and then you will find it here, and then look at the translation. I mean, it's obvious, but in case you weren't thinking about that and you had that question, now you know. This is the introduction, so you can read through this. These are the assignments. The glossaries module is here, but I already showed you how to find that in the modules. Now let's take a quick look at this blooper. La importancia de poner tildes correctamente, inclusive en las mayúsculas. We talked about this. Las mayúsculas sí se acentúan. We talked about this before. Sin las tildes, and I'll scroll this in just a moment. Sin las tildes, no entiendo si es una noticia o se está ofreciendo como sicario de hasta 6 personas y un extra por la suegra. Let's scroll down here. Now this one, it's supposed to say mató a 6 personas, también asesinó a su suegra. That's what it's supposed to say. But without the tildes, the stress falls into a different syllable. Mato a 6 personas. Right? Se está ofreciendo como sicario. También asesino a su suegra. Right? So it's very important to have these tildes placed correctly, because that can change completely the meaning of words. Again, bloopers for us to learn from. The class lecture will be here. The video will be here. This is the PowerPoint. These are the readings for you to review. Go through these. These are for reference, optional reading for this week. These two are longer pieces, so you can peruse them. You don't need to memorize them or read the whole thing, of course. These are California laws and language laws and legal issues. But I do want you to review the ones above, especially for you to understand the laws regarding special education, about IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, Protecting Students with Disabilities, Free and Appropriate Public Education, FERPA, and HIPAA. I want you to review these as well. For the class exercise, you are going to translate, not interpret. You're going to translate this from English to Spanish, what the teacher and the psychologist say, and from Spanish to English, what the mother says, just like an interpreter would do. You're going to do this as a written translation. Now follow these instructions. Some of you are not doing this and you are getting points deducted. So I want you to save your translation in a Word document and you name the file like this: your last name dash your first name dash class exercise 4, all together like that. Now here's the audio. This is of course a sample and you can use this to practice later if you wish, but you don't have to do that. You're going to be doing a written translation. The script is actually here, so if you wanted to, you can copy this into a Word document and then change that from English to Spanish, the mothers from Spanish to English, etc. So you can do that here. And you have the due date there. For the homework, you can read the instructions right there. You're going to look at some job leads. Read the instructions. They're pretty self-explanatory. Again, Word document. You're going to name your document, your last name dash your first name dash homework 4. And for the discussion, it's good to learn from bloopers. We learned today what not to do regarding tildes for capital letters. But it's also good to learn from good exemplars of good translations. So I have some here. Read the introduction about what we're talking about. Read the instructions on what to do. And you have some good translations from the Long Beach Unified School District. And it's important for you to notice that the English, if you didn't know the language, it looks like it's translation, right? You have the font, you have this word right here, diagonally, and you have the same thing in Spanish. You have a safe place to learn act, right? An act is a law. Ley del lugar seguro para aprender. The word that is highlighted here is the same word here, translated word here. And notice that in English, because of the noun adjective positioning, and you have act at the end, ley in the beginning, you have to rearrange some of this as well. But notice that the translation is here. You have bold here, you have paragraph here, bold, all capitals, etc. So take a look at that. This is from the Long Beach Unified School District, Spanish right there. And your assignment for you to turn in is here. This is the scenario. Your client is a secretary from the Los Angeles Unified School District, and there is a translated letter for the members of the ELAC and SSC, English Learners Advisory Committee, and School Site Council. And you are hired as a professional proofreader. The letter is already translated, you're just proofreading. And she asks you to proofread the Spanish translation for accuracy and format the document so it looks as identical as possible to the English source text. So this is what you're going to do. Follow the instructions right here. Pay attention to these items here. And make sure to replicate all these things here. Here, you're going to rename your file, the one you're going to turn in, as SPED, Special Education, underscore Spanish underscore final. This is your final letter you're turning in, your final work product, dash your last name dash your first name. You're going to save this file as a PDF and then attach the PDF to your Canvas discussion post. This is a discussion. You're going to share it there. And your grade is going to depend on both accuracy of proofreading, you make the corrections accordingly, and the precision of the formatting replication, that the Spanish looks as close as possible to the English. You need to attach your document with that proper name, the proper renaming. Otherwise, your work cannot be graded. And here is the letter. You can download it right there. But here's the letter. You see it's already there in English and in Spanish. Same document. You don't have to open two documents. It's one document, 2 pages. You don't need to translate the header. Of course, that's the logo. You do not translate the logo. You do not translate these here unless you are asked. Usually you leave that template as it is. But from here on down, you translate. You notice that? You do not have to translate that. That is fine. Leave that there. That's the name of the center. You can choose to translate it if you wish, but you don't have to, because this is the letterhead for this page. You don't have to translate that, again, unless you are asked by the client. In this case, you do not have to. Title, see from here on down. Notice that the formatting is different. That's what you want to correct. And here's the Word document as well. And because this is a discussion, you also have to, after submitting your document, come back and reply to at least 2 of your classmates. Remember that you must post yours first before you can see your classmates' posts. And this is what I want you to do for your responses. Identify one formatting or proofreading strength in their submission, something they did right. Offer one constructive professional suggestion for improvement. And be specific and professional in your feedback. Remember that your responses must be substantive and meaningful. Simple agreement posts such as "I agree," "nice work," whatever, without elaboration will not receive full credit. You know that from our previous assignments, our previous discussions. And finally, here is what you will have learned by the end of Module 4 for a deeper dive if you choose. Again, this is optional. You do not have to do this, but if you want to go above and beyond, you can look at this website for Interpreter Train. All right, that's it for Module 4. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have a wonderful week.